各位好，欢迎收看33高峰会，我是 Clarence 张梦华。时光飞逝，距离新西兰的2023大选呢，已经是过去了整整1年了。新西兰的政坛历经了变革，走过了不平凡的365天。不知道您有没有想过，那从竞选的承诺再到政策落实，从施政的理念再到治国实践，这1年当中，新西兰究竟历经了哪些重要的变革呢？而且面对各项的挑战，联合政府又是如何应对的呢？所以要回答这个问题的话，我们当然就要请这个国家的执政者来解答一下了。所以今天呢，我们也是非常的荣幸，也是终于有时间和新西兰的总理 Christopher Luxon 来聊一聊了。首先，就让我们来听听总理对这1年有着怎么样的感悟以及思考吧。
Look, I mean, the first thing to acknowledge is it's a pretty tough time for New Zealanders, and it's been difficult dealing with the mess that we inherited from the previous government. But I think we've made great progress, and I hope people get a sense now that we've actually gone to the bottom, and we're hoping to come out the other side. And I think when people see, and we said we'd get the economy rebuilt and lower the cost of living. When you see inflation come down, when you see interest rates now coming down, that's a good sign for growth and for jobs in the future. We said we'd restore law and order, and we've made great progress with respect to making sure the police have all the gang laws in place and the powers that they need to be able to make sure they take the fight to the gangs. Also around serious young offending, and also more visibility of police, particularly in downtown Auckland CBD. And then obviously a big focus for us on health and education, where we need to deliver better public services for people, and particularly in education, we've made a good start putting in place structured literacy, structured mathematics, and a renewed focus on attendance. So look, there are a lot of things that I'm incredibly proud about. We're working really hard. We've got a quarterly action plan that we just keep working relentlessly through. And those are the things that are going to make life better for New Zealanders. If they can get a lower cost of living, they feel they can work hard so they can get ahead, if they can feel safe and secure in New Zealand, and they can actually see good education for their kids and good healthcare for their parents and themselves, that's a good thing.
确实是非常具体的政策成果为我们解答了除了这1年来新西兰政府的一些施政的图景，还有像从这个经济的重建到治安的管控，到教育的改革、医疗的提升等等，我们听到了，而且呢，也是确实能感受到一系列积极的变化。然而有一点呢，我已经迷惑了很久了不知道大家有没有跟我有同样的感受，那就是为什么都执政1年了，总理还是会经常提到这8个字：前政府的遗留问题。难道现在还没有到了新政府全面承担起施政责任的时候吗？为什么还在怪前政府呢？
Yeah, well, we are. And I think, our vision is very clearly this country has huge potential. And I feel that 11 months into this job, that actually this country has great potential. There is no reason why it can't be the leading small advanced country on earth, period. And for that to happen, we've got to get the country turned around, and we have to make sure that we have more ambition, more aspiration. That's why we've been, investing heavily in making sure we advance trading opportunities. Because a lot of what we're trying to do is to build a bigger economy. And when we build a bigger economy, then we can deliver better quality public services to people as well. So, we want a bigger engine economically so that we've got money to spend in public services across the country. So, no, look, I'm really proud. We've got, we're trying to pull the country and out of the turnaround and the hole that it's in, and actually we're starting to get some momentum, and you can see that with levels of confidence, that people are confident. Confidence is at a 10-year high, and that's just people saying, look, I know they've inherited a tough situation, they're making difficult decisions. The government, though, is doing the right decisions. They will actually set New Zealand up well for the long term, which is good.
虽然通过这番话确实又看到了来自总理充满信心与远见的施政的蓝图，但是仍然就是他也没有为我们去解答到底为什么还在怪前政府。要知道新西兰1届政府也就3年，所以如果接下来的2年政府仍然有大量的都是前政府的错这样的话呢，我觉得一定会对下一次的选举造成一定的影响。好的，那总理刚刚也说到了，说想要一个更加强大的经济引擎。那现在这个引擎的表现嘛，我觉得大家可能都是自有公论的吧。那 CPI 的数据确实是降到了一个很低的水平拿我个人来讲的话，终于可以去超市去买新鲜的西红柿了，很不错。但是你要是再一看 GDP 的数据的话，也只能用还是轻微倒退这样的词来安慰自己了。所以对于这些经济数据的话，总理又会如何解读呢？那新西兰的未来的经济引擎到底该如何加大马力呢？
Yeah, I mean, you touch on the key issue, which is that the previous government lost an understanding of economic fundamentals. If you increase government spending, you drive inflation. When you drive inflation, you drive interest rates. When interest rates go really high, the economy shrinks, and when the economy shrinks, ultimately businesses start laying off workers, and so you get rising unemployment. And that's why we're focused on making sure we get spending under control. You've now seen inflation come into the band for the first time in 3.5 years, down from 7.3 to 2.2%. We've had 2 rate cuts already, with hopefully many more to come. You consider 12 rate rises under the last administration. That then should trigger growth and jobs. But then the real opportunity for us is to make sure we're putting in place the growth drivers and the foundations for the future. And that means world-class education system, embrace more science, technology, innovation to add value to our goods and services, have modern, reliable infrastructure, make sure we get rid of red tape and compliance that's not adding any value, and importantly, have stronger international connections with the world for investment into New Zealand, but also exports out to the world. So those are the 5 things that we really think will drive our growth into the future and improve our economic productivity, grow the size of our economic engine, and as a result, be able to make sure we have a higher quality of life and living here in New Zealand.
确实，总理身为前商界大亨吧，对于经济发展的内在逻辑还是蛮了解的。到现在呢，无论是 OCR 还是通胀率都在回落当中。但我想说的是，我都能预测到下一次当我采访到反对党党魁 Chris Hipkins 的时候，他会说到的话，一定是这些数据是在变好，只是这些历史的趋势跟现在的执政联盟没有太大的关系等等的话。不信的话呢，大家可以关注我们后续的节目。好的，那既然讲到了前总理 Hipkins 也要提一个问题了。那上次的节目当中呢 ，Chris Hipkins 也说过，说新西兰太过于依赖 PAYE 以及 GST 这2个税上了，所以现在确实是时候去考虑其他的税收来源了。换句话说吧，资本利得税可能就是唯一的一个出路了。毕竟现在也有越来越多的银行还有经济学家都在提出这样的理论，所以我们也不得不再次问问总理了，为什么你就是如此反对这样的一个税种呢？
Look, it's not a surprise. Chris Hipkins, who spent more, borrowed more, and taxed New Zealanders more, wants more tax. And I can tell you the mess that we're in today is exactly the function of the same thing. I mean, his first instinct is to say, how do I raise more tax? What this country needs to do after 3 years of a recession is actually grow. And we grow our way out of a recession, as I talked about before, rather than tax our way out of a recession. So, I can tell you, Kiwis ain't going to like a capital gains tax on their house, on their investment property, on their KiwiSaver account, on their business, on their farms. That isn't going to work. And so it's going to disincentivize people. What we need to do is make sure we grow this country. We need a bigger economic engine. We need more growth. And that then enables us to be able to spend. But they are, it's interesting. Their very first move is to, again, increase tax. And yet they didn't support lowering tax for low and middle income working New Zealanders on a very basic decision that they should have supported our initiative to actually make sure we get tax relief to low and middle income working New Zealanders, which we've delivered for them earlier this year. So, again, not surprising. Labor Party's all over the place. They've tried capital gains tax many times before. The reality is you've got to grow the economy, and that's what we've got to do. Get ourselves moving, growing, and expanding the economy so we've got the economic and money to be able to invest in the way that we want to.
这番点评还是蛮犀利的不仅直接的指责了对手的一些政策上的短板，而且呢还展现了政府对现在经济发展的一个视角。当然了Christopher Luxon 总理今年已经卖了3套房了，上演了帽子戏法。所以呢，也不得不让人去怀疑，你不征收资本利得税，是不是就是为了让自己捞点好处呢？
Look, it's not about my own financial affairs. I can tell you right now, I didn't come to politics to make money. There's lots of other ways I could make money. I'm choosing to do this job because I really want to make sure we grow the New Zealand economy, and that is the way forward. Is not to tax your way out of recession, but to grow your way out of recession. That's what's important.
你别说，这个表达还是蛮坦率的也是展现了他的一些责任的担当。那在经济增长与税收的天平之上，新西兰究竟该如何找到一个平衡呢？也许我们要在2026年才会知道了。那10月底的时候呢，新西兰的建筑许可政策上也迎来了一个大的变动。那政府宣布以后的一些建筑商呢，可以直接自我认证，这无疑简化了非常多的繁文缛节以及许可的程序。可预计的就是呢，建房的时间以及成本都会下降。但是该如何相信，或者说如何评估自我认证的这样的一种有效性呢？ 政府难道就不怕给建筑市场带来的一定的风险吗？
Well, listen, what's the problem that we're trying to solve for? It takes 19 months, almost a year and a half, or just over a year and a half to build a standard house in New Zealand, and it costs 50% more than it does to build that same house in Australia. So that's the problem that we've got to deal with. Why has that happened? Under the last government, they let resource consent timings blow out. The cost of it went through the roof. Endless red tape. I was in a standard 4-bedroom house the other day, and actually they're going to have 15 property inspections on that building site. And the problem is that actually the inspector comes out from the council and they're sick, and as a result that gets delayed another 2 weeks, and nothing can happen until that inspection gets passed. So what we're saying is, just like we have with electricians and gas fitters, where there are low risk projects, particularly in project home companies, we should be able to have a pre-start inspection and a post finish inspection, and we should be able to have our builders self-certify. We have qualified builders, we have good consumer protection laws, and we make sure that there are extreme penalties for companies that do not adhere to that. We already do it for gas fittings. We already do it for electricians. So why can't carpenters and builders be able to do the same thing? And that is one of the ways, if you're going to get to the root cause of why our houses are so expensive, and you're going to get to the root cause of why it takes too long to build them and too expensive to build them, we're going to have to do a lot of things like importing overseas building products, which we've already announced. Make sure that we can do 60 square metre granny flats without a resource consent. Look at our building code inspection, building code authorities. We've got 67 BCAs across New Zealand. It's just way too many. The rules are different in different parts of the country. It's just insane. And this is another thing, which is to say, look, there is a way in which we can manage the risk for low risk buildings where it's well known. That you can actually go off and actually have builders self-certify. You have the inspections at the beginning, inspections at the end, make sure the quality product is in place, but actually you don't need to do 15 inspections. That's taking 19 months to build a house and making it 50% more expensive than New Zealand, than Australia. So we've got to be able to make sure that we can work on the cause of the problem that we've got, which is a huge amount of complexity, a huge amount of compliance, a huge amount of red tape. We want to always have smart, good regulation, so we make sure we get quality products, but we do need to speed up the process of building houses and therefore lowering the costs as a result.
那房价呢，应该是每个国家的老百姓都非常关注的事儿了啊！现在也能从无论是取消繁琐的审批、建筑流程，还是说这个监管的效率，都是能够看到政府似乎真的致力于解决新西兰老百姓住房难的问题。在今天国内话题的板块的最后呢，我们来聊聊治安。虽说治安的新闻呢也没有完全不见啊，甚至总理自己的选区一部分的 Flatbush 的治安问题也上了新闻的头条。但是实话实说啊，现在能够明显的感觉到新西兰的治安状况是在好转的。我们之前虽然也经常开玩笑的说，这是不是因为年关将至啊，犯罪分子也要去准备过一下圣诞了？这当然是一个玩笑嘛。但是其实你能感受到的是呢，无论是帮派法案的执行，还是奥克兰重新赢回了市中心的警局，这些都是新政府所谓的恢复法律与秩序目标的一个结果。所以总理对最近的治安变好以及帮派法案等议题又有着怎样的见解呢？
Yeah, well, look, I mean, we've gone after violent crime, which went up 50% under the Labor, and what we've done is made sure we go tough on gangs. Why are we going hard on gangs? Because they are 1/4 of 1% of the population of New Zealand, but yet they're driving 20 to 25% of our violent crime. And so as a consequence, what we're doing is making sure we make it tough for gangs. So we've given the police new powers, which they will be able to operationalise on the 21st of November. We've made their laws that enable the police to have all the tools and the backup that they need, so they can ban the gang patches in public places, break up gang members from associating and consorting, go after their illegal guns, which is driving so much of the violent crime that we're seeing, and ensure that we get an aggravating factor for a gang member. We're going to be tough on gangs. We're going to harass them. We're going to make life incredibly difficult. And lo and behold, what's happened? The common Cheros gang has been dismantled. You've seen the mongrel mob in Apotiki, be really, attacked really hard for the police, and good police efforts, and good on the police for doing their job of protecting and serving the community by going after gangs. On retail crime, we've gone after serious young offenders, in particular the most persistent young offenders, and our military-style boot camps. I've been down there. I've seen the 10 young men that were involved with that. I've seen the program and the workers and the support staff that are in there. That has been, we're still a pilot, but it's gone exceptionally well. And then when you think about what we're doing around policing, we've got 500 more police that we want to recruit. We've got very little turnover of our police officers. They're not leaving the police. They're staying in the police force in New Zealand. And importantly, importantly, we're getting big wings of new people, new recruits wanting to become police officers in New Zealand. And when we get them out on the streets, as you've seen in downtown Auckland and the CBD, a fantastic set of results where you're seeing, violent crime, retail crime in general come down because our police are increasingly visible. That's been so successful. We've rolled that out to Christchurch and Wellington. That's been successful. So we've rolled that out even to more towns of having more visible police officers as well. So we've got our laws coming through the Parliament. Remember, our Parliament means you have one reading, you have public consultation, you have a second reading, and then you have a third reading. It becomes law. So we're working our way through the sentencing legislation at the moment so that we can limit the amount of discounts that judges can give sentencing for offenders. So we're doing a lot in the crime space. Watch this space, but I think we've done everything we can to activate against violent crime, retail crime, police visibility, and I think we're making progress as we see it in some hotspots. Having said all of that, yes, there are still places, and it's not going to be, you don't solve 6 years of soft on crime and very poor performance from the former police minister, Chris Hipkins, thank you very much, and actually turn that around in 11 months. But we have put laws in place that are common sense laws to make sure we're tough on law and order and that people understand there are rights and responsibilities in New Zealand. You can't just take all the rights and then do damage to your fellow citizens. On the public transport piece, as you saw, within a very short period of time, Minister Mitchell and also Minister Brown, local government and police ministers, met with police and Auckland Transport. We've put immediately a police presence into public transport across Auckland. We've made sure that the $15 million we put into the budget to make sure that public transport workers were protected with either real-time CCTV footage and screens. We're making sure that money is getting out into those public transport organisations. And importantly, we've already said if you're actually going to attack a public transport worker, that will be an aggravating offence and sentencing, meaning that if you've done that, you'll actually get a bigger sentence as a result. And we're exploring right now, and I've asked the Select Committee to explore as the legislation's going through the Parliament to see whether we can extend that to all public transport users as well. So some pretty quick response to a new developing situation, as we saw with that situation, that tragic situation, because frankly, people deserve to be able to get around and do their life without having crime get in the way of it.
在这里我要补充一句，那本次采访之后呢，新西兰的帮派法案已经正式的开始执行了，而且我们 Channel 33呢也是经常会出席警方的一系列活动啊。最近比如说我参加到一个活动，就是在讲这个帮派法案。那无论你怎么说这个法案，警方自己是承认的，这样的一个法案相当于是给予了警方前所未有的力量，来帮助他们应对帮派的犯罪。所以我们也希望随着法案的执行吧，新西兰的治安状况会变得更好。好的，那讲到这里呢，我们会稍事休息，待会儿回来呢，会为您关注新西兰这个小国家在国际上想做的大事情。不要走开，待会儿见。好的，欢迎回来。您现在收看到的是33高峰会，我是张梦华。那今天呢，我们时隔许久，终于有机会采访到了总理 Christopher Luxon。上半场的节目中，我们聊了很多新西兰国内的事情。那现在呢，就让我们把目光转向国际。首先来问问总理最近在国际上取得的成绩，因为他最近也是没有闲着。光上个月呢，就有2次大的外交活动，一个呢是前往老挝参加了东盟的峰会，还有呢就是前往了萨摩亚参加了英联邦政府首脑的会议。没错，还见到了新西兰的君主英王查尔斯3世。所以呢，我们也是首先想让总理来分享一下他这2趟出行的感悟与收获。
Look, I mean, we're really lifting the intensity of our relationships across the whole of the Indo-Pacific region. Why are we doing that? We're a small country, we're a trading country, and we need to be able to we need to make sure there's security and peace within and stability within the region. And we need to make sure when we have that, then that can convert to prosperity. And actually that's why we're lifting our relationships with all countries across the Indo-Pacific region. So, the good news on the ASEAN East Asia Summit, that was a meeting where we had, China, the US, we had India, we had Russia, we had Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and Korea, and then we had the 10 Southeast Asian countries of ASEAN there as well. And again, we discussed a lot of the complex issues in our region, from the geopolitical tensions. It was a chance for me to have some bilaterals with Cambodia and India and Vietnam and Thailand. Obviously, India and New Zealand have quite a small trading relationship, and we want to deepen that and and broaden that. And so it was a great chance to spend some time with Prime Minister Modi. And then the Commonwealth Heads of Government is a completely different body. It's actually 56 leaders from different countries around the world, many of them Caribbean, African, Asian, and Pacific. And again, often small island developing states. I think 33 of the 56 are of that. And also then some of the big countries in Africa and in Asia that actually have massive cities that are actually growing incredibly quickly as well. So it was a good chance to see what issues are in that forum, which has had a different focus and orientation from ASEAN.
还是那句话，能明显的感觉到新政府上台之后呢，想要重新在国际上刷脸、刷存在感。毕竟过去这段时间可能是有点太低调了。那本月呢，我们也都知道啊，说更大的新闻呢，就是新西兰的总理呢与中国国家主席习近平在秘鲁举行的 APEC 峰会上也是会面了。所以在下次的采访中，我们也会专门的问问他首次见到中国领导人的一些感受。那接下来呢，就是我对总理发起灵魂拷问的时候了。我们都知道啊，新西兰有艘军舰在前不久呢和邻居澳大利亚一起啊是穿越了台湾海峡。虽然之后防长也说了，说新西兰的一个中国政策没有改变，但是还是让人有点不解，为什么新西兰非要去凑这个热闹呢
？Just a routine activity. For us, again, we are a small country. The freedom of navigation really matters. International law really matters. Everything that the New Zealand Defence Forces do, they conduct all of their activities in accordance with international law and good practice, and consistent with the freedom of navigation. So there was nothing unusual about that at all.
我想大家都已经猜到 Luxon 会这样说了，毕竟西方国家其实说白了都是这样的说的话，就是航行自由。可即便是这个航行自由，但你看看新西兰和台湾海峡的距离，隔着这么远，非要专门过去彰显一下航行自由，这个解释还是有一点点牵强的。而且呢，再加上新西兰频繁也是做出一些让人摸不着头脑的事情，总让人是感觉你是不是在为了迎合美国而专门去做和中国作对的事？难道总理就忘了当时澳洲总理 Scott Morrison 执政时期澳大利亚的下场吗？难道新西兰就不怕遭到中国，尤其是在经贸方面的报复吗？
Look, I disagree. I think, Premier Lee and I've had a good conversation about that. There's a lot of areas where the New Zealand-China relationship can continue to deepen, and that's about where we should collaborate more together, particularly in the areas of trade, people-to-people connections, around climate change. There's a whole bunch of opportunities for our two countries to work together, very constructively and very collaboratively. There are differences. We have different political systems, different political histories, and different values. And as in all of our relationships, we call out Australia when we have a difference with them over 501s and repatriation of their, back to New Zealand. We do the same in China. And so, and I do that in the same in all relationships. I expect to predictably, consistently, publicly or privately call it out. So when we see foreign interference from China attacking our parliamentary system, I will call that out, as I have done. When we see people not following the international rules-based system, and we're going to call that out because we have values that we need to stand up for. And it's not just China, it's any country that sees that. We are putting a big effort in to make sure that the North Koreans actually adhere to the UN sanctions that have been applied under international law. Because at the moment, Korean munitions are going to Russia, a large country that didn't respect the sovereign nation state of the Ukraine and has launched an illegal war into the Ukraine using Korean munitions. That war has caused huge pain and suffering for people in the conflict, but also had huge impact on energy through Western Europe, had huge impact on grain prices through Africa, and had huge impact on rice prices throughout Southeast Asia. So if you don't have peace and stability and security, you don't get prosperity and economic growth. And so that's the position that we have, which is so the China position is very clear, and it's been well understood and well articulated, which is, hey, listen, we've got lots of areas to collaborate. We've got a long-standing, important relationship with China that's existed for over 50 years. And it's a country I know well and respect incredibly well. That's why we invited Premier Lee to New Zealand. That's why I hope to visit China next year at some point as well, because I think there is huge opportunities for our countries to work together. But equally, we will call out foreign interference. We will raise human rights. We will raise issues where we have differences. And we can do that predictably, consistently, publicly, privately. And that's the right position for us to be in.
看来 Luxon 自己还是非常想去中国的，而且呢，在前不久的 APEC 峰会上面呢，中国国家主席习近平也确实邀请了 Luxon 在适当的时候访问中国，所以我们也是可以期待一下正式官宣的时候。那今天的节目最后呢，我们来聊一个比较严肃的话题。近年来啊，新西兰尤其是情报机构对中国的公开指责是频繁的出现的，经常会说中国对新西兰进行了干预，或者说中国的黑客袭击了国会设施等等这样的新闻。所以呢，在本季度的执法目标当中，有一个反外国干预法引起了各界的关注。甚至呢，在9月中旬的时候呢，中国驻新西兰大使馆还专门发文向新西兰外交部提出了交涉，因为呢说有情报人员存在骚扰或者恐吓新西兰本地华人的现象。所以问题来了，这个全文19页的新西兰刑法反外国干预修正案真的是针对中国的吗
？You've seen our intelligence agencies talk more publicly about foreign interference. What we do not want is any foreign country putting pressure or exertion on diaspora and communities in our own country. So we're really making sure, and we're also just making sure that our rules are up to date, given what we've seen as changes over the last decade or so. We're making sure we've got that we've got all the protections that we need to see in place. But we're going to stand up for foreign interference in New Zealand. It's really important that we do, because we are here to protect the interests of all New Zealanders. And so some of the foreign interference, that we don't want to see that applied into the communities, whether they're from any country around the world that exist here in New Zealand. New Zealand is an open economy. We welcome people from all over the world. When they come here, they become New Zealanders, and we want to make sure that they're looked after and not interfered with or coerced by foreign powers inside our own country border. That is about respecting the nation sovereignty and the nation states and borders that exist. That is about international rules-based system. That's about being a good global corporate citizen, as a country. So, those are things that we will call out, and we're just making, and all we're doing here is adjusting to make sure that we actually have real clarity and protection to make sure that our system is not as vulnerable to interference from whichever state wants to exercise that.
还是没有给出太具体的答案啊。那如果您还想了解更多的关于这份法案的内容，或者说想了解一下如何提交反馈等等，也可以在评论区告诉我们。说了这么多呢，其实无论从何种角度吧，我个人作为一个生活在新西兰的中国人，还是希望两国能够保持现在这种友好的关系的。当然了，这个也离不开双方的共同努力。正如中国驻新西兰的大使王孝龙博士最近说到的一样，信任是最宝贵也是最脆弱的财富之一。那其实新中两国花了这么多年、数十年的时间，建立起了一种信任，一种可以说是西方国家对于中国来之不易正面的信任。所以我也希望啊，这份信任呢是可以长存的，而且新中两国的友谊也是可以长存的。好的，那到这里呢，我们今天的节目就差不多要结束了。所以如果您有更多想要问到新西兰政府或者反对党的问题呢，也欢迎您在我们的 YouTube 评论区下面去留言，我们也会在未来的采访中问到他们。感谢大家收看今天的33高峰会，我们下期再见。